So we're here about Linda Malcolm's case, well, we'll go over a few different things, but the first thing we wanted to discuss was ideas for a few local residents making a statement to city council in one of the upcoming meetings. And this is honestly, I've never talked in front of a city council. I really don't know how it works very well. George explained to me a little bit on Friday. We spoke, but George, could you maybe provide a
Yeah,
little
sure. And
expertise
I don't,
on what you're thinking?
yeah, I don't know what the exact rules are in Washington State. I know most states kind of how it works is so there's the mayor, he's the chief executive of the city, and then all of the department heads, which the chief of police would be a department head, they serve at his pleasure, meaning he appoints them, he can fire them at any time. And so basically, if you have a police chief who's not putting pressure on his detectives, in this case, to go out and interview people and do, investigative actions that need to be taken in this case. If the police chief isn't willing to do it, then the next best option is to try to apply pressure to the mayor. Now, when you go to a city council meeting, they'll have usually, you have to get on the agenda typically. So you'll probably have to contact them before and say, hey, I would like to speak. I would like to be on the agenda. And they'll probably ask, what for? And then you just say something bland like, I want to talk about, some policing issues or something like that. And so what happens is there's political pressure. See, the problem that Jennifer and I have is there's nothing we can do. We can't make these people do their job. We can go out and interview all the people in the world. We can run down every lead in the world. But if they're not going to work with us and help, give us guidance, there's nothing we can do. So the next option is to try to apply political pressure. Now, the family, I think, has tried in the past with the mayor, and the mayor just kind of blow them off. But it's easy for the mayor to blow off people who don't live in the state, who are, whatever. It's harder to blow off people locally because there's one thing about politicians. I think this is going to shock all of you. They really like power and they like staying in their office. And, they don't want to be blemished with, if if it started circulating that people were upset that the police department wasn't doing his job, then that could start applying political pressure. Now, the reason you want to go to the city council meeting is because most cities in the United States operate kind of like our federal government does. The city council controls the purse strings, the mayor controls the personnel decisions. So it's kind of yin and yang. The city council can't tell him who should be in these positions, but at the same time, they could choose not to fund them. So it's kind of one of these dances. It's kind of like our federal government shut down now. People are saying that Trump has no power over this. Yeah, he does, because that's how the system is designed. And so that's how most cities work. So an idea that I floated to Jennifer a long time ago was if nothing else works out, maybe we could try to have local citizens apply pressure because here's the problem. It's not just that Linda and her family are not getting justice. The people in your town are, because guess what? There could very well be a murderer running around in the same neighborhood, maybe that Linda was murdered in, and they're not doing anything to try to solve it other than, they do this dog and pony show, and Jen and I've seen this with police agencies,
Most.
almost all of them, all over the United States. This is not a Washington State thing or a Colorado thing or an Arkansas thing or Texas or West Virginia or wherever. They will tell the family that they're taking these proactive steps and they're waiting on stuff to come back from the lab and blah 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 blah, and we don't know if any of that's true, and most of the time they're lying. They're just making up stuff just so that people will just leave them alone, kick the bucket down the road for another 6 months. Hopefully the tension will die down. So the idea is that if we could get a couple of people to go to the city council meeting and start applying pressure to the people who control the purse strings and the person who makes the personnel decisions. And so that's kind of the premise here. The thing of it is that I can't tell you exactly what to say to them because it's kind of a feel thing. Like you have to know the mayor or the city council or something like that. And I told Jen this the other day. The mayor still may be resistant. He may not care. He'd be like, okay, whatever. I don't really feel any pressure from this. But you're probably going to find at least one city council member who is sympathetic to to our plight, and I'll say that our plight, and they might start behind the scenes or even in public meetings. They might say, "Hey, well, what are you guys doing?" because while they don't control who's in that department, they control who gets paid. So essentially they do. So I've seen it work in other cases, not necessarily like a murder investigation, but in other instances, you know, like I was thinking of there was a road department one time. They weren't like, there were certain streets they weren't taken care of in the city. And so finally some people got mad and I wrote about it and you know, nothing was happening. Well, then finally some people got mad, went to a city council meeting and they started applying pressure saying, look, we'll run another mayoral candidate against you if you don't get this, because the department head was a friend of his. And so, and it worked. Like after that, all these other streets started getting taken care of. So that was just an idea in my head. Do you guys have any thoughts about what you might want to say at a city council meeting?
Yeah, I think that Kitsap County and Port Orchard, first of all, they're very tied in. They're like one department because when we're talking about Port Orchard, they operate really as one, wouldn't you say? So I don't know how familiar you guys are with it being Kitsap County,
Mm-hmm.
because they're known as one of the most corrupt departments in the state.
Well, let me ask you this.
Um,
So is Port Orchard and Kitsap County, are they still independent agencies even though they work together a lot? Are they independent of each other?
Yeah, yes.
yeah,
It'd be like I work at my sheriff's office and then we have Colorado Springs PD. And we may overlap on cases sometimes and work together, but we were two independent agencies, so I'm pretty sure it's the same situation up there.
That is so odd to me though, because normally I've told Jim this story. I used to work in a county where literally the sheriff department and the city police station were right next door to each other. I'd go in the morning and check reports in one, and they would want all the tea on what was going on at the police station. And then I'd go over to the police station. I'd walk like 50 feet and I'd go in there, and then they wanted to know everything that was going on in the sheriff's department because they literally did not talk to each other ever, and they didn't work
That's
together.
crazy.
There was like little like fiefdoms. They just don't want any outside interference. And I mean, Port Orchard does definitely give me the impression they're more than willing to meet with me and Jen. I mean, they'll talk to us and they'll sit in the conference room with us and tell us everything we want to hear, and then do absolutely nothing that needs to be done.
Yeah.
So that's interesting though that they're so tight knit.
yeah, it's kind of from what we've experienced. When one feels like they're the ones that made a mistake, they just toss it back and forth between each other. So I just would be curious, like, what, Kitsap County would have to say about this case.
Well, would they have any statutory authority though? That's the thing, because it happened in Port Orchard.
Yeah,
So in every jurisdiction I've ever worked in, like even the state police can't get involved in most states unless they're asked to. You know, like the county couldn't get involved in a Port Orchard case unless they're asked to. And that's my understanding of it. And there's advantages to that, but the biggest disadvantage to it is that it's really, really hard to, it might be impossible to remove that case from the jurisdiction of that agency, if that makes sense.
yeah, unless there was proof of like corruption or mishandling, like we kind of had in Rebecca's case, but we don't,
Yeah.
I mean, other than them not, as far as we can tell, not doing anything, we really don't have anything concrete, but I know, George, when we talked Friday, you had mentioned that whoever goes before city council should mention, and I'm taking notes, by the way, and I'll send these to you guys, but should mention that an independent team of experts have conducted their own reinvestigation and provided all that information and new leads. And Port Orchard hasn't followed up on any of that information.
I watch a lot of city council meetings, and I always have, and I've moved all across America. My suggestion is whoever is speaking in front of them, have it written out, because I think the formality of those meetings sometimes I think stresses out the public and they don't realize how formal they are and they kind of lose their way. So just my recommendation that you have exactly what you want written down so you don't get distracted. And typically you only have about 3 minutes. So you gotta be
That's
quick.
good to know. That was one of my questions.
Yeah. Yeah. It's 2 to 3 minutes typically.
Yeah.
Public comment.
So then it would be a quick background on the case and what's gone on in the last several years, and then I guess you ask for something, like not make a demand, but we're here
Well,
because
Well, Jen, here's the
Or-
thing. You don't have to give a lot of detail on the case because every single human being in that room knows about the case. They all know it. The
Okay.
city council knows, the mayor knows. They know the details of the case. And so you just go in there and say, this is in reference to the Linda Malcolm, murder investigation. An independent team has been out here interviewing people on their own time and dime, have come to this town to try to figure out who killed her. And they've had minimal cooperation from the police. It's been 3 years and they're not taking any investigative actions at all. They're not going out re-interviewing people. They're not doing any type of police work. All they're doing is this song and dance with the family and with this independent team. And we need action. We don't need promises. We need action. And so, and then you look at the mayor and say, Mayor, police chief, he works for you, right? Okay, we'll have a conversation with him and say, hey, are there things we can do to get this case solved? And then say, you can start by recanvassing the neighborhood because that would be a great first step.
Yeah,
So just
Yeah.
go do it. Like literally, you don't even have to get in your car and drive. You can walk down to the neighborhood from the police station. I mean, it's ridiculous. I mean, and there are people there that need to be interviewed. And
Yeah.
so I would start just basically with that because one thing that always works in any scenario, in any public forum, is common sense. Like looking, I'm saying, why aren't these people being re-interviewed? What if one of them was a murderer? Why aren't they being interviewed?
yeah, exactly.
So
And
just
I
kind
think
of
it's a really good time right now because I think I posted in the Facebook group. There's that this was like a few weeks ago that it went really viral. The guy in Bremerton who was arrested for being a police impersonator, and
Oh,
people
yeah.
are really concerned because we're
Mhm.
like, what is going on? Is this person a murderer? Have they kidnapped women? That's like not his first night he did that. There's multiple calls. There's body cam of him on calls with officers, and everybody's like, this is really weird. So
Yeah.
I think overall the community is starting to really doubt the local law enforcement because they removed too from the news like all those body cams of him actively working calls with officers.
They removed that?
It's crazy.
I didn't know they could.
And I don't even know, did he just enter a deal? Like we're not even going to find out. He's not going to trial, right?
I can't find anything on him.
Yeah, they've just scrubbed most of it.
I did have a question because the city
Yeah.
council thing, I'm sort of familiar with it from just a different perspective, but why couldn't someone just say you're not qualified, you don't have the skill set? The officers there, I mean, it's a podunk town. I mean, it's a
Yeah.
poor podunk town. Can't you just ask the city council and say, you've had this for 20 years. Let's just kick this off to a bigger agency. Let me take this off your plate. You're not skilled. You don't have the money. You don't have the resources. Let's find a different agency to take over.
That is definitely an avenue you could suggest. I mean, you could suggest it. Yeah, I mean, again, toward the end of your presentation. And here's the thing: if you have 2 or 3 people who are coming to this meeting, you will each get 2 or 3 minutes to speak. I'm pretty sure. So,
Okay.
so if you coordinate with those other people and you're not able to get everything in 3 minutes, have them make some points, and then you make some points. Because actually advocating for a different agency would be good. That would be that is a reasonable. You can say, hey, you got too much on your plate. Why don't you bring the state police in and let them handle it? Or it doesn't sound like the county would be a great option just because if they're basically in bed with it, with Port Orchard, then you're going to get, the result won't be any different. The state police could be different. And so that is a great option.
Yeah.
And I think that's another thing on timing that's a good option because of the Paulsbo case where the state did step in immediately because there's that law with when there's a death that
Yeah, the police killed the guy, so
Yeah.
the state agency takes over
yeah.
automatically.
Yeah, when it's an officer involved shooting, different statute that covers who
because
investigates.
that's just an example. I was just thinking of that because that was Paulsbo Police Department, another podunk area that worked
And
directly
Kitsap.
with Kitsap.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Kitsap County would be like a parallel agency. So I don't know that they could turn it over to Kitsap County. It would need to go a level higher at a minimum. So to the
Yeah, because we
state.
wouldn't want that.
No.
Yeah,
And I
they
don't
wouldn't
even
have
think that's
you're right,
possible.
Jen. They would not have
Yeah.
statutory authority to do
Yeah.
that. It'd have to be the state.
But the state police and or the cold case of the Attorney General's office, who before you came on, George, I was explaining a little how like they were involved for a while, and then when Detective Walton left, I don't know where all those people went, but we haven't heard a peep about them being involved anymore.
Yeah, the problem with them is that they don't have
But
investigative authority, though. That's the thing, is they can't
yeah,
go and interview people and all that other stuff. It has to be the law enforcement agency in control of the case. I mean,
so then the state
yeah,
police
I
would
mean,
be
it's
the
good. It's
ideal
good that
next
our
step,
system's
right?
like this to a degree, because then you have transparency to your transparency. Um, but yeah, but again, it's kind of like the city council, the mayor thing. The prosecutor, while they don't have investigative authority, they can lean on the police and say, hey, I want you to take this step or that step. And the reason being is because guess what? The next day they're going to bring in another case. And then the prosecutor's in charge of determining whether the charges are going to be brought or not. So you try to keep these, and you, Jen, you know 1,000 times better than me because you deal with prosecutors all the time in your job. You try to keep these lines pretty clean between the two, but technically they don't have investigative authority. So once again, we're
True.
back to law enforcement.
So state police would be, and like Laura Lee, we're happy to meet again and like help write up speaking points
Yeah.
and stuff. The other lady, Renee, who wants to go before city council, she said she can't do either of the meetings this month. So this was a question for you, George, also that I wrote down, like, is it better to have more people at one meeting? Or is it better to have like Laura Lee at a meeting and then Renee at a meeting next month and then somebody at the meeting in January? Or do you think it makes any difference?
Probably not, and and I hate to say this. Probably the best time to do this would probably be in January because, yeah, because of the holidays. Some city council members will be missing. They're not going to be taking care of any real serious business for the next 5, 6 weeks because all the budgets are set. Everything's set. There's nothing, they're just going to deal with some issues that come up. Even the mayor might miss a meeting. So my suggestion would be to just try to fill that room up with people. Even people who aren't going to speak. If you could get a few more people to come in, and as somebody says, makes these points and people start clapping,
Mhm.
then it starts, then they start feeling that pressure. And so I would suggest gearing up for the January meeting, because that's when they're going to reset. Everybody's going to be back in town. Nobody's going to be gone for the holidays or whatever. So that would be my focus. And we can help you guys out with talking points.
Yeah, for sure. Would you be okay with
And I
that?
think I would like that if we had more time because I was feeling
Yeah.
we both talked about when it's over the holidays, I just feel like it won't be people will be gone. Like I agree with George on that. So I don't
That
know if
makes
you want us
sense,
to.
yeah.
I mean, I'm willing to go, but maybe it is more effective to wait till January.
I think
Yeah.
that makes a lot of sense. If we're gonna pick one meeting, that makes a lot of sense. And then that also gives us time to get some other local residents on board to at least go attend.
Yeah, because if we
even if
could
they don't
have
wanna
some
speak.
time, we would reach out
Yeah.
to people we know because it's not our county. If it was our county, I mean, we know more people that are on city council that the county commissioner Mason, Randy Netherland, he is a good friend of ours and we'll call him and we'll reach out to him because we are close enough, our towns, and they're small enough that I know he knows people in
Okay.
Port Orchard. So I'll see if he has anything he can help us with. So let's see
If
what
he
he
has
says.
any
Because if he's there, I
suggestions,
think that would make
that'd
an
be
They may
impact.
they may have a requirement that you are a resident of the town to speak. So, and what they'll do is they'll ask you for your address. So I don't know if that you can get around it by using someone else's address because I've seen people do that before. So you may even have to find people anyway. I don't know what their rules are.
Okay.
But even if
We'll
it just
find
came
out.
down to you going and coaching someone else up to talk,
Mm-hmm.
that would work too, if that's the only option we've got. So
Mm-hmm.
we can find somebody, I know we can. And
Yeah.
Renee might be the person, I'm not sure where exactly she lives. I feel like she does live in Port Orchard, if I remember correctly, so.
I'd like
And
to
we'll
get 2 or
talk
3 if we
to,
could.
Yeah, I
Jim and
know.
Susan too. They were Jim. Actually, he was probably a detective around Linda's case, and he was Port Orchard, not Kitsap, right?
Mhm. Correct.
Yeah. So that would give
What
us
was
time to try to
his-
get in touch with him. He
What's his last name?
Jim Harris, Harris, right?
Correct. Yeah.
I
Harris
recognize that. Okay.
Investigations.
And
Oh, okay.
so he helped a lot because he knows a lot about the corruption in Port Orchard when we had the use of force, assault from the police, and he dug in more on our case. So, and I mean, that dragged on for such a long time that we know kind of all those people, so we can reach out to them if that helps, because they would have more pull than I would. They would, I mean, they run the town. It's ran by a small select group.
Okay. Well, I'm sure that I'm just writing this down. I'll make some phone calls and find out what are the requirements for somebody to speak. And then that'll at least give us a starting point, and then we'll try to recruit some other people for a particular meeting in January, and then when we get a group together, we can do this again, and then actually help you put together speaking points.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
I
If that
think
works for you guys.
if you put some emphasis on the possibility that Linda's killer could be a serial killer, you know,
Mm-hmm.
people might go, oh, maybe we ought to go find this guy. Instead of
Mhm.
Yeah,
maybe he went missing and you know, went about his business, you know, kind of like, you know, this is still an issue. Let's find this guy. Also, you could, you know, he could possibly be tied to any other arson crimes that weren't solved in that area, you know? So
Mhm.
you've got not just the fact that he killed her, you've got the fact that he burnt the
Yeah.
house. So,
yeah, for sure. I mean, if someone's willing to do that one time, what's to,
or
and they got away with
assault,
it, what's to stop
Right.
them from doing it again if that
Mhm.
solution worked before?
And
So, yeah.
I mean,
think
I think it's very dangerous and it is a public safety concern. And I think people need to realize that. And I mean, that's why I even ever reached out to you guys, because when we dug into the person I sent you, we just thought
Mhm.
that was so frightening that somebody is walking around. I know what he did to me, and I know that he has certain connections with the police department and relatives that make it to where, I mean,
Yeah.
not
Nothing's ever going to happen.
nothing's
to
going
him.
to happen to him. I've never heard of
That's-
5 months in county jail for attempted murder with a prior of a violent car theft.
That
Well,
is
that's
pretty
another point of emphasis
illustrative.
too. When you're up there talking, people seem to have this mentality that the police department owns the case. That is not true. We own the case. We, the public who pay their salaries. That case file doesn't belong to them. It belongs to all of us. Now they have control of it, and they can release that case file too. That's another avenue that we could, pursue, is them just releasing the case file. And honestly, if I don't think there's much in it, but there could be something. Me and Jen have had other cases where just one little detail, and we're just like, oh my God, if we just knew this one little thing, it would have changed everything. So in your talking points, emphasize to the city council, because half the time, I hate to use the term, like they don't know, they don't even know the rules and regulations and laws that pertain to what they can do. I mean, a lot of them don't even know. Like I've had to explain it to them more than once, which is kind of scary. So they don't even know that, I mean, because what'll happen is the police chief will get up there and say, well, it's an open and active
An
case.
open and active case.
Yeah, we can't release anything because it would impugn the integrity of our investigation and might, let a murderer run free, which is weird because the murderer's been running free for 16,
18
17
years.
years, whatever it is. So, but yeah, that should be a point of emphasis, is that they don't own this case, and the mayor doesn't own it, and the city council doesn't own it. We own it.
Yeah. Any other ideas people have? Like, this is preliminary, which is good. We have time to work through this, but
Yeah,
anybody
I
else?
was we were wondering what there is that we could go do public document requests or FOIAs of anything, because they really don't like that at the courthouse. It's embarrassing to them. They don't like any attention on stuff like that. They are very unfriendly to like
I agree with
citizens,
that, yeah.
like filming, doing anything that's within their rights within, the courthouse.
I mean, we FOIA'd, like we got Linda's 2005 case.
Mhm.
A local resident got us that, her drug charge case. We FOIA'd another case on another suspect that I'm not gonna name, got that. But I don't know what else, because we know they're not gonna give up any of the case file. So I
Yeah,
don't
and
know if there would be
we've already
anything
got that.
else.
We got stuff from the corner already.
We have the
Uh,
coroner stuff and we have the fire department stuff.
Yeah, so
It's really
I
just the
think we,
police's stuff.
yeah, I don't think there's anything. I mean, because they never. No, I don't. Let me think about that though. There might be something. There might be
Yeah.
some nuance out there. Um,
What I'd really love is to find a local investigative reporter that wants to chomp their teeth into this and why nothing's being done, but I haven't been successful in finding one.
We'll see, and
They're
that's the other
just,
thing too. When you go to that city council meeting, you never know what agency might have a reporter there who's covering it. And I can tell you from personal experience of covering, Susan said she watches a lot of city council meetings, and I'm like, I've been to a lot of them, and I mean, literally, there are times when pulling both my eyeballs out of my face and stuffing them in my mouth and chewing on them would have been funner. Um, but then somebody comes in. I mean, I famously told you the story about how there was this town not too far from where I live where they had two police chiefs in a row who sexually assaulted. She was 14 when the first one got her, and then he got charged, and then the new police chief decided to sexually assault her when she was 15. And so they got rid of him. Well, then finally they got a police chief that wasn't sexually assaulting anybody, but nobody liked him. He was just like a jerk. And so at a city council meeting, he said that finally the mayor just decided to fire the guy. And oh no, there was a third police chief there who he raped one of the water workers, and it was a male water worker. Like he saw him out walking. He was like working in the water department. He just took off walking, and the police chief pulls up and says, "Hey, you want to go back road with me?" And he's like, "Sure." So he jumps in there. They're in there drinking beer, and they go back to the police chief's house, and then he sexually assaults him. And so anyway, so they had a real bad string of this thing going on there. And so finally they get one that didn't do all that. At the meeting where he was asking to keep his job, one of the city council members got up and said, "Hey, you're not going to be our police chief anymore, but I want to say one thing. Thank you for not raping anybody while you are a police chief." Trust me,
worse, they
nothing
never have to
was said at that meeting. No one even remembered or thought about. So anyway, yeah. So you might have a reporter in there who's just bored and is like, "Wait a minute, this sounds
that'd
good."
be nice. Yeah, that'd be nice if we could.
Yeah,
Reporters
because
move around so much.
it's hard
crazy.
because there's just not, like Kent was saying, it's very podunk. There's not a lot of local news in general. So it's,
Nope.
I mean, it's kind of like maybe there's people on YouTube that do investigative, but I know you guys have done one too. But I mean, I just don't know for local reporters around here. And
Yeah.
like kind of speaking of that, I thought another thing we could do is I don't know if you guys have ever been like to the library, because the Kitsap Sun deletes a lot of their articles online. They don't have a big archive, but like, our library would keep the print copies of everything. And we just thought it would be interesting to go pull the stories about the case from that time period and see if they change, see if there's things we haven't noticed before that the reporters put in.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be great.
I have a bunch of
We
them,
could
but
work
that
on
doesn't mean
that.
it doesn't mean I have all of them. And I think I called the Sun and their archives didn't go back that far, but that doesn't mean the library doesn't have them. So if that's
Yeah.
something you want to go
Okay.
look for, that'd be awesome.
Yeah.
I can send you the ones
Well,
that
at
we
least it's
do
something I
have,
could do.
but yeah, I appreciate that. Cause you're right, like original newspaper articles can be so valuable sometimes, like little details that
Yeah.
were released.
There's a website, I learned it in an OSINT class, and it's called the Wayback Machine. And
Oh yeah,
yeah,
I've heard of
yeah.
this.
And it's like you go back in time. You can see whatever you want, I guess. Like I think you
Wow.
put in like a date from a drop down. Like if you owned a car like 10, 15 years ago, you could type in, if you knew like the license plate, you'd see like for sale or wherever. I looked up one of my cars and found it was something else. It was really interesting.
Wow. That's
Yeah,
cool.
we'll look at that too.
It was awesome cheap. And kind of pissed I sold it, but you know.
Yeah, if anybody has ideas, that was gonna be one of the next things I was gonna ask the group is there anyone else you think we should try to contact that we haven't? Do you have ideas for additional investigative actions we can try to take?
I
Or
have
other ways to
somebody,
apply pressure?
Tracy Walder. She wrote a book. She was in the CIA, and she was she wrote a book called Unexpected Spy, I think is what it was called. She went to school, I think, at Hockaday. She goes to my Yancey State Hills. So if I run into her, I'll talk to her. I sent her a message because she put a post on Instagram about Houston, and evidently there were like 36 bodies that they found in
Yeah.
Houston, but like 88% of them were men.
Mhm.
So not really Miller's MO, but hey, she knows about that and all kinds of other
Yeah,
things. So she
still is.
I'm all
might be
over
able to help
Houston
you.
right now.
Well, you ought to talk to her. I can send you her
Yeah,
Instagram
Kim's
and
doing.
reach
All
out and
over
say
Houston.
just that you know.
I know more about the red light district in Houston than I care to at this moment.
She's been doing the Operation Rebecca
Oh.
research for us, which is a different case, but yeah. I was
I found the
just-
red light district.
I bet you did.
Oh,
Well, if you talk to Jeremy Williams' brother, I'm sure he could help you out. Anything you want to know about that red light district,
I'm pretty
he
sure he knows right where it is.
could. Yeah.
Probably.
Yeah, George, I was trying to think today. I'm like, is there anybody else? Like, there's just a few people who won't talk to us, who avoid us. And I don't want to try to bark up that tree anymore. I keep hoping police will go knock on their doors. But I was like, well, we talked to the coroner. Alan talked to the fire department. I was like, is there any other? I've tried to get a hold of previous detectives. None of them will respond to me. One does work. She's retired now and she works at the courthouse as security. And so someone was going to talk to her and
Yeah.
tell them about what we're doing and see if she would at least talk to us offline, but haven't heard anything, and that's been a week. So,
I mean,
but
I
if
don't wanna
anybody has
stop doing
ideas,
stuff. I don't want to stop doing stuff, but the problem is now the front and center problem now is them not doing their job.
that's true.
So our efforts in Linda's case now are best served by compelling them to do their job. Because none of this other stuff is going to matter. We could go out and somebody could confess to us, but if they won't do anything about it, then there's
Yeah.
nothing we can do.
Yeah.
And this whole
Yeah.
nonsense about, well, if we found out something, it might not be admissible in court's garbage. I've told you 1,000 times. Some of the key witnesses in cases I've covered, the doors would open in the courtroom and they would come in there with an orange jumpsuit on in shackles. And they would get on there and say, oh yeah, by the way, the other night we were sitting in the cell and he just spilled the beans on what he did. And I remember one dude, he was in prison for 178 years and he was the main witness in a murder case. I mean, so
Yeah.
I will say that's one thing I brought up in my last email to the chief deputy is like, this whole argument of anything we collect not being usable in court is invalid because you got guys in orange jumpsuits that take the stand all the time, and I don't want to say we're more reputable.
That would
but
be
we're more
great, wouldn't it, if
reputable.
we went to court? That would mean we had some
Yeah,
answers.
I
Wouldn't that
mean,
be a good
why are
thing?
we worried about that aspect, right? Figure that
That's
out
an
later
odd
down the road.
comment. Yeah.
yeah, no, it's one of these BS arguments that they make. And and I tell people this all the time, these families, the only time they're ever going to be involved in a murder case is when they're involved in a loved one's murder case. They don't, before that day, they had no clue how the system works. After that day, they don't understand how any of this stuff works. And that argument is absolute nonsense. I testified at a murder trial last year in Tennessee because he had talked to me. So, well, he shouldn't have, and I wrote about it. And so, yeah, that's all a bunch of BS. So, I mean, think about it. Who do the police, if they have a suspect, they think that a guy killed a woman, let's say, who do they always try to bring into the loop to talk to? His exes.
His ex.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
I know. So why?
We're a more reliable witness than an ex, I'm pretty sure.
Well, we're not being tasked to do anything, like if they were tasking us, that is different. Then you become like an agent or something, but we're doing this on our own.
Yeah, that's a legal argument that could be made, but I think it's one that wouldn't hold up because we're still not certified law officers in that precinct. So
As a recovering trial attorney, I can tell you that everything you guys are talking about is true. Like this, being able to, oh my God, I totally lost my thought, but it's like you need to be able to appeal to the credibility of whatever witness, right? That you bring on the stand. And a lot of times you've got these jailhouse snitches. And if that's enough to secure a conviction, a lot of times it has been, it's worked before, then a good prosecutor should know how to deal with an independent, objective agency that has no bias. We're not being paid, so they don't get to like beat us up on cross-examination about how much money we're making per hour or whatever. And so,
Yeah,
I mean, all the things I would attack in an expert witness would be looking for bias and prejudice, and there's just none here because it's an independent agency. We got involved later, not at the bequest of the agencies involved. So
yeah,
this whole like inadmissibility stuff is like, well, put me on the stand. We're in this group, put us on the stand and like let the jury, a good prosecutor would know how to make us look credible to a jury so that they'd be like, yeah, these are experts and they have, you know, developed these leads and the officers aren't following up on them. So I think that we're very credible witnesses. Like I
yeah,
absolutely think we're credible, and police officers and law enforcement agencies aren't always the best judges of who is a good character witness and not. And so like this whole BS about cops saying, oh, this is inadmissible or inadmissible, what they're trying to say is like, oh, it's admissible, but we don't know if it'll persuade a jury. That's not your job, that's the prosecutor's job.
yeah.
Don't even be
Right.
thinking about that, guys. Let's get that evidence. So
Yeah.
yeah,
So the only thing that defense attorney asked me was, so you write books for a living, huh? Do you make money doing that?
yeah. How much
And I
money do you
said,
make?
yeah. I said, I make money just like every single other person in this room. And the
Oh,
jury
yeah.
started laughing.
Well, I mean, I was like an evil attorney too. I was an insurance defense attorney. So I'm
Oh
like
man.
actually, right? So I was paying for the experts to testify for me. So I had to know how to, like, I could rehabilitate a guy who got up there and was accepting $5,000 to look at the case and give me the verdict, like the opinion I want. I know how to rehabilitate him, but that's because I'm a lawyer. Cops don't know how to rehabilitate character and credibility in front of a jury. So I don't buy anything they say about what is and is not admissible.
No.
I can make just about anything admissible if I want to.
Yeah.
And I could probably dismiss just about everything as easily. So, I mean, good lawyers should be able to do anything with any fact that they're given. And so I just don't buy that argument that we're not a credible organization or nothing we provide is admissible. That's not true at all, especially if it's a lead. That's like saying leads aren't
Yeah.
admissible. It's like, well, yeah, but that's your job to follow the lead afterwards and follow up
Exactly.
on it.
They're just giving
and-
you leads. Yeah.
Right, right.
He made some argument to us recently about, or the family about, oh, well, if we went and got a confession from somebody, and I'm like, listen, in my email, I'm like, if you will listen to all the recordings I have sent you, dozens, you will never once hear me, George, Alan, anybody ask, did you kill Linda Malcolm? We treat every single person like an eyewitness or a friend or whatever, never as a suspect. Like, that's not what we do. That would be overstepping. So there's no worry about having to testify to like, well, he confessed to me, because that's not going to happen.
Right.
Um,
And it wouldn't matter anyway, even if somebody did confess to us. Like Patricia said, we just get on the stand and the jury gets to decide if we're credible or not. That's how the system works. I mean, why would it be less admissible for a suspect to confess to me than to confess to one of his exes? How is that less admissible?
I don't
It's
know.
not. I mean, it's not.
Well,
And
I mean,
and
I guess
have
I'd
no-
ask them, can we talk to the prosecutor then? Who's the prosecutor on our case? Since you guys have decided we already have a court case, maybe they can help us
I
out.
know, right? Like, I think you guys are about 1,000 steps ahead of yourselves right now. worrying
Yeah,
about
I
court.
guess I wasn't aware.
Yeah. Yeah,
I'd
court
love
should
to
be
talk-
low on the agenda right now for them.
Who knows if they even have a DA assigned to the case, because there's nothing going on with it. I mean, my
Well,
cold
technically,
cases at
there is a
work.
DA who has that jurisdiction. There's a DA.
Yes,
So technically, yes. That is another interesting thing. I don't think we haven't pursued that enough either, is talking to the DA in the case. Because they can apply unique kinds of pressure. They can do it too. Because I mean, Jen, you and I've talked about this 1,000 times. I mean, police bring cases all the time. I've been in the middle of it before where this detective thought he had this murder case solved. This prosecutor would not bring charges. So one day I was in his office, had a whole case file sitting at the corner of his desk. And he's like, if the prosecutor's not going to do anything with this, maybe somebody else can. And he just got up and left his office. And the implication was, there you go. And I took it and I was like, ugh.
I love it.
I wrote a story about it and I left
Yeah.
town for a week because I was going to Oregon. When I came back, I was covering a sex assault trial with a teacher. And the same prosecutor, I was sitting in the front row and they called for recess during voir dire. And he came and goes, you and me are have to talk right now. And we went outside, we're standing underneath the tree, and he's like, I want to know who leaked that case file to you. There's only 3 people who could have done it. I want to know who did it. And I said, his name was Don. I said, Don, we both know I'm not going to tell you. And I just smiled and walked away. And so,
Yeah,
anyway, I know we're getting way ahead of ourselves in this stuff, but I'm just trying to think out loud, brainstorm.
for sure.
Because,
That's all we can do, yeah.
I do like the idea of talking to the DA office. There is that concern that the case is so old that there's not really like a current point person on it. Like, they may have to find someone to assign to it quickly and get familiar with the case and something like that. They might be helpful in telling you what exactly they're missing to bring
Yeah,
the case.
I would love to know, what are your gaps in the case?
Yeah,
What
like
gaps do
what are
need
you
to fill?
missing? Like what do
But-
you need to be able to
Yeah.
prosecute here, bring charges against a suspect? And I mean, they're not necessarily obligated to like, I mean, they don't have to tell you, but at the same time, if you can get them to be like, listen, I'm waiting on some sort of confirmation that this alibi, whatever it is,
Yeah,
whatever it is, they might give you a little hint on what they're like being held up on. And they're gonna know, at least from like an evidentiary standpoint, what is lacking to make the case like come to trial. Versus the cops, like law enforcement, they're more of the boots on the ground, they're gathering it, but they may not have the sophistication of knowledge with with the evidence itself and how it'll be presented at trial, so to speak. So it's like they're more of like gather, sweep in as much as you can, and the prosecutor fine tunes it all. And so in my experience, I've noticed that prosecutors work very closely with law enforcement agencies,
Mhm.
and they work together to get the convictions they need, because it's like, listen, you're the guy who can go get me this evidence and then I can put you on the stand. And so
Mhm.
they work together, and just because you've gone to the law enforcement agency and they've been kind of, not as helpful, it doesn't mean necessarily that the DA's office will be.
I agree. I think the DA is an angle that we need to start focusing on, a
Yeah, we can
two-pronged
try.
strategy.
was gonna
Yeah.
say, like, so we have about 37 cold cases that were, I hate that term, but cases that are considered cold at work. There's not a particular DA assigned to any of them. So like the 2 that my partner and I have been focusing on the most this year, we had to go to the DA and be like, we need you to assign somebody. And so they did, and now we have someone to work with over there, but and I'm not saying that's not an obstacle, it can't be overcome, it can be easily overcome, but I wonder if in Linda's case, that's part of it, that there isn't a particular one assigned to it right now that's keeping tabs on anything. I feel like the police are just like making excuses, like putting it on the DA basically, like why we shouldn't be involved. And that the DA
Right.
probably has absolutely no idea of what's going on.
Wasn't
And I also think Port Orchard is relying too much on forensic evidence. Like, I know there's been retesting of evidence and we don't have the results of most of that and stuff, but like we keep emphasizing to them, and I'm gonna say it right to the camera right now, because I hope they watch this, you have to go re-interview people. You have to, in a case this old. You can't do it any other way. And we've given them like so much, because we've interviewed so many people, mostly witnesses or associates, but some who probably should be considered suspects. Like, just go compare those people's original statements to what they told us. and go re-interview them again. I mean, and I don't think they're doing any of that. So, but forensics, I mean,
We,
even Detective
we
Walton
also-
said it, forensics isn't gonna solve it necessarily, so.
No, and we were gonna give you the names. He has the files of the aliases of the guy that I told you about, because there's like 4 other names he goes by. And one of
Mhm.
them, it's very odd because he's somebody who is currently in prison.
Yeah.
Like, it's another person or something. So I'll send you those.
Okay. I can at least
Because
cross-reference.
I mean, maybe if there's an
our
overlap
stuff.
in the name, you don't even have to
Exactly,
tell me.
yeah.
I'll just send it to
Like,
you.
yeah, I keep a spreadsheet of everybody. It's a spreadsheet of everybody we talk to. It's also a wish list of people we want to talk to. Some won't talk to us, some we can't find. But I keep a detailed spreadsheet on all that, so I can cross-reference names at least and see if
Mhm.
anything matches. Does anybody have questions about Linda's case? Aside from this whole effort of trying to apply pressure, but questions about the case in general, where it stands, we can try to answer
What was her
questions on
job?
it.
What did she do again? The job
She
that
was a-
she got.
She's a
Paralegal?
paralegal. Mhm. Yep.
Do you know who she was a paralegal for?
They do. Do you mean, well, I can find both for you. Give me a minute here. Ron Ness, I believe, was one of the lawyers. He has now passed away. I believe he was one of the lawyers she worked for the longest after she got fired from the county. Yes.
So she worked for the county.
She worked for the county from about 1995 to 2005. And when she got arrested for the drug charge in 2005, she was fired. So my understanding is then she went to work for this guy, Ron Ness. I will find her last paycheck though, because it was from a different. Actually, I have it on the spreadsheet. It was from a different law firm. She switched jobs and I don't really know why. See here.
Did she work for the
So-
same county that she was murdered in?
Yeah,
Did she work in the public defender's office?
she worked for Kitsap, I believe it's Kitsap County Prosecutor's Office.
Oh, okay.
It's on the same street she lives on Sydney Avenue. That big complex with the courthouse and the jail and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Charles, I don't know how to say his last name, Houle, was the last attorney she worked for, and we have her last pay stub from his, I think it was Howell. I'll have to look at the exact name. They're not in business anymore. I have talked to him, but he and his partner that ran the law firm only remembered her working for them for a few weeks, which matches up with what we have found out. So he's like, I know she worked for me. I remember the day she didn't show up for work, and then we found out what happened. But he's like, I didn't really work with her. You know, she was a paralegal. I'm in court. I'm doing all this stuff. She's in the office. So he didn't have a lot of interaction. But that was the last law firm that she worked for. I think it was
That's tough
Howell
because
and
people pass
Goodell.
away and get older and retire, and you know,
Yeah.
it's like we're running out of time.
There's at least 4 people on our spreadsheet who we did talk to and interview who are now dead, who
Did
have
you-
died in the last 3 years.
Could you find like through a FOIA? I've never done a FOIA. I've heard people talk about it all the time, but FOIA, if you FOIA whatever cases she worked on, like throughout her whole career. Because
They
if
won't
you
give that to
knew,
you.
yeah, right.
I
If you
don't
knew
think
that,
George, would they?
like whatever
They would
happened,
give it to the police. Obviously, police could get access to those. I would
Yeah.
hope they've looked at that.
somebody could have just, gone berserk and took it out on her. because of
Yeah,
the
and there's a lot
onset
of
of the person.
gang. There's like gang issues in Port Orchard because there's the Banditos motorcycle gang, and then who's their rivals? I don't know. There's another, I forget the name of the other motorcycle gang. That was probably around that time in 95, the big gang, but now it's the what was like the drug cartel that they shut down like a year or two ago that had really got like kind of overtaken the town.
Hells Angels.
No, this was a like Mexican cartel, right? That they've shut down. Like this happened like a year and a half, 2 years ago. But
Like the
before that, it was the
Mexicans?
motorcycle gangs running the town.
I mean, I'm not saying that it couldn't be possibly gang related, but this is what I know about gangs when they murder someone. It's an assassination. They're not coming with a knife and they're not gonna, if they're gonna burn that house to the ground, they're when the fire department shows up, it's gonna be in ashes and there's gonna be a bullet right here. I mean, so I wouldn't this I mean, this is I think Jen and I agree on this. It seems to be a spontaneous crime of passion. Like this just someone got mad and it just happened because I don't think people understand how really gross it is to stab somebody. I mean,
Difficult
Yeah.
when they're fighting.
and difficult. It's not
Yeah.
easy. I mean, anybody who's ever hunted, you know how hard it is, which I don't hunt anymore. But just from my experiences as a kid and a teenager hunting, dealing, with a deer body, and trying to carve it up and all that other stuff, it is really hard. And so normally when somebody gets stabbed, it's because they just look around and they just try to find a weapon of some kind. They're just trying to find something to stick in that person to kill them. And so, and it's just gross. I mean,
It's
so
also there. We can't rule out the possibility that Linda was the one who brandished the knife and it was taken
Right.
away from her.
right.
Because it's not a big knife. It's either this folding pocket knife. Jeff, our knife guy, narrowed it down to 2 knives. It's either this folding pocket knife or a small paring knife out of the kitchen. So to me, that doesn't really show much premeditation. I mean, it could, but it's like, it seems pretty spontaneous. We just haven't been able to identify a trigger in those 48 hours before her murder that would have led to it. We have several theories, but we haven't been able to prove or disprove some of them. So
Did any of the possible suspects have any sort of hand injuries?
not that we've been made
We don't
aware
know.
of. We've actually had, but so I will say with regards to Linda's ex-boyfriend Keith, who's now deceased, he died like a year and a half after her, supposedly of an overdose. Robin and Susie at a minimum saw him at the bar the day after the murder when everybody was, or may have been the day of, I can't remember. Everyone's kind of gathering, like trying to process. And they specifically said, no, he did not have any cuts to his hands, like were
Yeah.
positive.
Yeah,
Now,
I
other
would just
suspects, not sure. So
yeah, because I would totally expect, even with a knife that small, for some
Yeah.
sort of, with that much blood and that much force,
Yes.
some slippage
yeah,
and your own hand wound. And there was, and I mean, I don't know, did they look for other blood from someone else? Because, yeah, okay.
I hope
I know, I'm
so,
dealing
but
with
they
this
had
with
never
my
processed a
case.
scene like this before, so I
Right.
don't know how confident I feel.
Right. And how lucky are you that you get the like blood splatter analysis, like analyst in the county who comes in and goes, hey, that
Yeah.
blood drop is at a 90-degree angle, therefore it came
Yeah.
from directly up and must have been the killers. You know what I mean? So like it may not have had as
Yeah.
you know, I don't want to say skilled because they're skilled, but they're not as like honed, I guess, in that skill
Yeah.
to identify that, because I would just expect that the killer's blood would be all over that place.
Same here, and that's what Jeff said too. And plus, both those knives he identified, neither has a hilt to protect your hand. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
and that's the top reason we can come up with for setting that fire. It's because they
Yeah.
knew their
Get
blood
rid
and
of your
DNA.
blood. Yeah.
Either that, or my second theory is they dropped something like their wallet and they weren't going to go back in the pitch black to try to find it. So let's just set it on fire, but unfortunately, we're not privy. We have the crime scene photos from the coroner, which is helpful, But that's all before the fire department and the crime lab sifted through all the ash and removed all the ash, so we don't have photos of like any potential blood splatter on the floor, spatter on the floor, walls, or any of that stuff after they cleaned out the house, so. And of
Yeah.
course, Port Orchard won't share that with us because I guess they think we're gonna like put it out there and jeopardize the case. I don't know. I don't know how it would jeopardize the case anyways, but.
Didn't you say she was moving and,
Mhm.
well, could it have been a box cutter? An
Mhm.
exact.
No. The width of the wounds is too narrow for a box cutter, and the depth is too long for a box cutter. So, I mean, not saying she couldn't have brandished a box cutter and got some cuts in on her killer, but whatever she was stabbed with, from what we can tell, no, is a different shape.
What,
And
like,
hadn't she been at the grocery store, or like she bought a lot of
Mhm.
groceries or something, and she was moving the next day, right?
I know. She bought 106, or spent $116 at Safeway that afternoon. We don't have the receipt. I hope police have the receipt. Of course, they won't share it. So we don't know what she bought, but we have pondered that, like, what are you buying? And like $100 back then is probably like $200 now. Like, what are you
Yeah.
buying?
Yeah.
You know,
It-
the day
it doesn't
before
make
your
any
It's in
sense.
wedding.
champagne.
I say
Maybe.
alcohol.
And then, but then she has no alcohol in her system, which is so bizarre. Like, even her family's like, what? Like,
were
she
they,
drank every night.
like
So-
smoking meth or something? Cause that's it's just like somebody, you must be on like some kind of stimulant doing that. Doing that.
She was
that
not.
many
She had no
times.
drugs, no alcohol in her system. So it's not to say her killer didn't, but
Well, and you
in
know,
terms of
Port
Linda,
Orchard got in a lot of trouble for their faulty test on alcohol and compromised lab. Like, what was that, 10 years ago?
That was a while ago.
Yeah, it was a while ago, and it
Okay.
went, I thought, to the state Supreme Court.
Yeah, I think the state's taken that over now.
Mm-hmm. So I don't
Were
know.
they
They don't really have a
purposely
reputation of being
mishandling?
trustworthy.
well, yeah,
Yeah.
and her
I think
her
the
family
Washington
has
State still
debated.
owns all the testing.
Okay. Her talks. I'm pretty sure her talk screen was done locally. I'll have to look back at the coroner's report. Her family has debated
Yeah.
that, like, did you mix up our sister's liver with somebody else's liver? Like, it's not funny, but it's kind of funny. Because they were like,
Yeah, they
it's
don't have a good
believed-
reputation from that time period with the tests. So
So grain of salt. Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, because everyone was pretty astounded that she didn't at least have alcohol in her system. Because she was a daily drinker, I guess. But
Mhm.
or it had just been several hours since she had anything to drink, and so her body had processed it. I don't know.
Who is she getting her drugs from when she got fired?
They set her up with an informant or confidential
that, Connor?
informant. The drug task force set her up because this guy, this confidential informant, who has a very long rap sheet, told them that there was a lady at the courthouse looking for drugs. And
She
so
was
they,
looking for drugs in the courthouse.
yeah, and so they set him up. He solicited her drugs, I think, right, George? And she agreed to
Yeah.
buy or something like that.
Yeah.
And so he brought the drugs to her house that day, set up the buy, she bought them, he left. And then they came in and got her.
Well,
So it's
did she ever tell anybody who she was buying drugs before she got caught from?
not that we know of, like her ex-boyfriend Keith, he definitely was doing cocaine. And apparently he'd buy it in Seattle and bring it over to Port Orchard and they'd do cocaine together. But beyond that, don't really know. It sounds like several of her associates or bar hopping friends would also dabble in cocaine. So it sounds like she had several ways to get some, but she wasn't like an addict from what we can tell. She would mostly use it socially or on the weekends. So she wasn't like a habitual daily user of cocaine or any other drug other than alcohol from what we can tell.
But doesn't it come from like South America and not Canada?
Anywhere.
You know,
Could
because
come from anywhere.
I don't know, but
Yeah.
it just seems like there's some, I don't know where I saw it, maybe it was like called high intensity drug trafficking areas. And it's almost like a straight shot from like Baja California or that side of or that side of Mexico up through California and then up to right to Seattle and then from there through Canada. And then that's how they get, I
Yeah.
guess, to like Russia or wherever, you know,
That's probably the most common,
like an arc
but
almost.
yeah,
Um, but it seems like she would just be right in the middle of just passing through. So somebody passing through could have just left the country. And at that point,
I mean,
she
it is scary
did.
because it's a port city, so you do have a
Yeah.
lot of drugs, you have a lot of human trafficking that goes in and out there.
Would Interpol be interested in your case? I don't know how
I
Interpol
doubt
really
it, unless we
works,
could
but it
prove that it
just
was drug
seems
related.
like,
Yeah,
know,
there would have to be a provable connection that and also the other thing too is that whole drug thing when it went down, it's several years removed from her murder. So you would think if somebody was going to, if that was the cause of it, you would think that it would have happened. Because I think what Jim was it 3-4 years before 2004, 2005.
Yeah.
So it's so far removed that I mean, it's not that we've completely dismissed the possibility, but it's kind of really low on the list because it doesn't make any sense to go back and kill her 3 years after this whole thing went down, you know? So,
Well, I don't know who would have the motive because that informant took her
right.
down basically, and then he ended up the charges got dropped because he had his own charges pending against him, and if he showed up to court to testify in her case, he was going to be arrested. Again, we go back to like reliable witnesses, right? So they ended up dropping the charges against Linda, and she never was convicted or anything, but she did lose her job. But like George kind of mentioned earlier, if someone had 3 years to plan it out, they would do a way more efficient job, I think, of taking her out.
Have you guys kind of looked into like because there's just not that many unsolved murders of women like in this kind of vicinity where you don't like where you'd have to take the ferry over basically. Like we're all very small towns along here. And I know I was telling you some about the woman who was killed getting into a car that looks like a police car with an officer impersonator. And I just thought that was interesting because that's a case that's really hard to find anything about. And Linda's case is kind of hard to find anything about.
Yeah.
So I just wonder kind of if there's similarities and what if there's other people who have information that would be useful that are working on these other cases.
I've definitely done many searches throughout the state of Washington, and I'm not saying I'm the end all be all. Looking for other unsolved arsons for one, and then arsons or it doesn't even have to be unsolved, but arsons that involved a murder too. And there's a couple other cases, but there was something about the details that just didn't match up or the time frame didn't work. But I haven't really found any others like hers that match up to me. But again, I can't discount it, right? Because someone's willing to do this once, who knows what they're willing to do again. But I have done some searching on that and I just haven't come up with anything. It just hers feels personal, not so much like a serial killer. And like when we did the analysis with the FBI profilers on their podcast, there's no evidence or no indication or evidence that Linda was sexually assaulted, but they did bring up a good point that doesn't mean a potential sexual encounter wasn't the motive and Linda turned the person down. I think if we're looking at a serial killer type situation, a sexual assault would have occurred. Whether
there could be other forms of sexual assault that you would have no way to check besides penetration of someone, so we don't know what somebody could have wanted to do.
Exactly. Yeah, and there was a very good theory brought up by the profilers about if she invited somebody over to spend the night, so they'd be there in the morning to help her pick up a moving truck and pack and do all this stuff, and they thought that was kind of an invitation for a sexual encounter, and then she turn them down and things escalated. I was like, yeah, that's a
Well,
valid theory
and then add
too.
in the groceries. That sounds like a woman who's cooking dinner for someone.
Yeah,
Like that sounds like she bought dinner and she was cooking dinner for someone,
Yeah.
and someone was supposed to stay the night and maybe help her move the next day.
could be.
And did she
So-
spend a lot?
Only
She bought him like a nice bottle of something as a gift.
Yeah,
Yeah, or like steaks,
But-
steaks, and like, I mean, you buy steaks.
Yeah.
I'm serious. I like when you told me the
Yeah.
total for the price, I was sitting there
Yeah.
going, "That's someone cooking a dinner for two, a nice dinner for
Mhm.
two."
yeah. And this, again, these are all just, details that we can interpret how we want. But in the photos taken by the fire department, there's only one plate and a knife and a fork next to her
Mm.
sink. I mean, she was a very cleanly person. It appears that could have been from the day prior. You know what I mean? We're left guessing with all of this stuff because we don't have the full picture from the
Was
police
it
department.
just the local police who came in to the crime scene and took the photos and everything?
Yeah, local
Wow,
coroner
that's
and
just-
Port Orchard PD, the crime
That
lab.
is, I would be horrified if it was my family with that small of a department that just does not have the training to handle something like that. It's just crazy
Yeah.
to me.
I know, I agree. So. But we'll just keep on keeping on.
Is there,
Yeah, and I mean, I'll go to the library. I wish there was more I could do, and
Okay.
I'm really glad we have to
Thank you.
January because it gives me a chance and Kent a
Yeah.
chance to reach out more to people.
I'll put out some more posts and see if we can get some more people on board, and maybe we can I'll find out when the dates are in January, and then let's do another one of these with the people who are able to go to the city council meeting, and we can brainstorm and put together what you guys want to say. If that works for everybody, so.
Well, thank you. I mean, I
Kim?
really appreciate it, and
Yeah.
so does Kent, because we need outside people helping. Like,
Yeah.
it's just not equipped in an area like this, so it's really important. If people knew what you were doing, they would know how important it is.
Well, we appreciate your support and following along, so
Mhm.
thank you.
For sure.
And Kim, I know you would.
I'm a slow processor, and I'm just
You're
here to.
okay.
I'm selfishly learning all because these are some gaps
Whatever.
in my knowledge. City council meetings, and I'll have a lawyer here. I just had to make some notes. It seems like this. I know everyone's talking about the public safety issue, which it is. It's also a public trust issue. I just
Mhm.
that
Mhm.
all day today I was thinking about it and taking a few notes and just thinking it's just public trust is. Because I think the word transparency right now is getting so overused, and it's almost like they might not hear that, but people want to trust the people in charge right now, and public trust is like your currency. And then what was the other thing I wrote? Okay, and this is a city council meeting question. If you went in with those action items on your talk, would it be appropriate to then go back to if there's no movement, no, or are the police just going to lie about performing these action items? And is there some accountability if you ask for particular action items, like the PD had not ID'd the moving company or recanvassed the neighborhood, these certain action items, is it appropriate to go back to another city council meeting in 2-3 months and just keep squeaky wheeling it, and then keep harping on, hey, we're gonna be loud about this, and public trust is eroding as there's no receipts of any of this getting done, and we're just putting it out there, and we're gonna talk about it. And I don't know I
think it's a really good point.
Yeah, that
I always
is.
balance
That's some good wording.
I'm not a very confrontational person in general. That's not my strength. And I don't know, how could you build just general awareness without pissing off the people who need to get the work done, but general awareness that, hey, your police department is saying they're doing stuff and they're not showing any receipts of anything being done. I don't know how that could.
The thing is, though, like, it is totally appropriate to go back the next month and ask follow up. It's a time for public to comment, so they have to listen to it. and it's public record. The other thing you can do is follow up with, if you actually find the voting members of the town council, you have those people email their representative, because that becomes public record too. And all of this building up, if you just have that wall of silence, then it starts becoming embarrassing for their elections and whatnot. So they're going to try to avoid that.
Yeah, and it seems to be a public trust, safety first, but public trust. Can we trust you to keep us safe?
Yeah,
exactly.
And they've got a lot of pressure on them right now.
That's going to
People are
speak
not
to
happy.
your common person in the town. Is
And also,
is my trust blind in these people?
it also has another effect too. And I have a personal example, a real good friend of mine who is not political in any way. He got mad at, he found out there was some stuff going, they have a big golf course in the town he lives in. And this happened actually last year. And they found out that there was a manager out there that was doing something. I don't know all the details, but nobody was talking about it. But then it came up at a city council meeting. He found out about it. He's retired Air Force, and he and like two of his friends decided they were going to run for city council over this one issue because it just came up out of the blue, and they all three won because everybody was so infuriated by what was going on in this town. And I can't even begin to tell. I played basketball with this guy in high school, so he is not, any politics are not his thing. I mean, it literally be like if Jennifer called me tomorrow and said, "Oh, by the way, I'm running for, the city council in Colorado Springs, Colorado." I'll be like, "What?" Okay. That sounds great.
No.
So anyway, you don't know what the spider webbing will look like once you start putting through. And that was a really great point, Kim.
Yeah.
Once you go to that public meeting, it's on the record. So it's attached to those minutes forever. And then Susan making that excellent point that have them email. Because here's the thing. If you get one email about an issue, you're like, okay, whatever.
Right.
You even get like 3 or 4 though, then you start thinking, okay, because there's kind of a rule in life. If one person, like in my business, if one person reached out to write a letter to the editor, that means there were 10 other people who wanted to, for everyone that does. And so if we're getting letters to the editor about consistently these themes, then we're like, okay, this is really aggravating people. So, and this is the funniest thing. So of all the things that politicians talk about, there's one thing, and a company I work for, we do a lot of polling. There's one thing that people wish politicians would talk more about and do more about, and it's public safety. It is. Politicians can talk about it all day long, and people never get tired of hearing it. People want to feel safe in their communities, and so, never, like that whole defund the police thing completely backfired on people who were doing it because nobody wants the police defunded. We just want them to do their jobs better. That's it, and pay them more and make their lives better because it's a horrible job.
And you don't have the person who did this. They're out there, so
right.
It's a public safety issue
Absolutely.
somewhere, probably here.
Yeah.
And if you can't catch that guy, how are you going to catch somebody else that's doing the same thing?
Right.
Yeah.
And if this is not prioritized, what are you prioritizing?
And
how are you gonna catch anybody without interviewing anybody?
And keeping a very tight little list of action items not only shows, hey, and following up, it shows that this group is determined. Right. And with those action items, you've also stated, I've done my research. I know. Yeah. We have put in time and effort. We care, and we're not going to stop. And we put in enough research that we know the details enough to know what to ask for. And that's a pretty big statement right there. That's
agreed.
Anybody who's going to do this, I would plan on being prepared to do it several times, because there's 2 approaches in this realm that work. There's a velvet glove where I extend my hand and say, hey, I'm going to try to help you out. But then there's the hammer. And we've been using the velvet glove, and now it's time to start smacking them over the head with the hammer. I mean, that's kind of my approach. Because, Kim, unlike you, I'm very confrontational. So I know.
I don't care.
I just
I
finished your book. I just
know.
finished your book. I get that sense.
Yeah.
Well, we've kept people for an hour and a half, and I appreciate, I'm happy to stay on and chat if people want to, but I don't want to.
One last question. Is there any movement on, I keep reading about the Homicide Victims Family Rights Act, and you mentioned that the family had discussed that with them. Does a federal law, I struggle with this one, does a federal law enforcement have to be involved on the first investigation to get that petition request done?
Yeah, so in theory, yes. What
Okay.
I'm still trying to educate myself on Washington law, but my
Oh.
understanding right now is that Washington State is following that Victims' Rights Act and
Okay.
using it.
They're using it
own.
as a
So-
model.
Yep, and that's what they're adhering to. So we are also working with the family to write a letter where they can request a federal, and I don't know how I feel about this, but whatever, let's get some outside eyes. But to get a federal agency to review the whole case file. The other thing included in that Victims' Rights Act includes a lot of things, but something else that's relevant to this case is if the agency can't come to a conclusion on the case or get a resolution or arrest, in theory, they're supposed to sit down with the family and review the evidence and explain to them why. And so those are the two things that Linda's family wants to go after now. So, and they told the police they're going to enact their rights. So, and they have every right to do.
And do you know if it's true in Washington? Does a federal agency have to have some involvement from the beginning? That's how I keep reading the law. Not okay.
So the original one that started at the federal level, yes, it would have to be a federal case. Yes.
Okay.
However, from what I'm reading, Washington State has chosen to use that law as their own, which they have every right to do, and basically say, okay, well, the feds are doing this, so we're going to do this too. This is how we're going to treat victims and their families. That's what I'm reading. If somebody finds something different, let me know.
Well, and also, Jen, the other thing is too, is you could make an argument that the feds were involved in this case because they did. The FBI was involved briefly.
Yes.
So, yeah, they were. That's true.
Because Bob knew about the case on that consult.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm like, well, they must have had something.
Yeah.
He had the case file. He had his old case file from this
That's
case.
exactly what I thought today. I'm like, wait a minute. That's where he was talking about.
That's a good point, you guys. So, that's a good point.
Somebody over there had it.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Those are my two
questions.
So
that's true. The feds were consulted on at least 2 different occasions.
They had something.
That may be, yeah. Well, maybe next month, I know it's holidays and stuff, but maybe in December we can do this again and we'll be farther along in this process and like have talked amongst ourselves and then do a final meeting before whenever the city council thing may be. And we can just kind of keep brainstorming and regrouping and going along, if that's okay with you guys.
Yeah,
that sounds great. Really.
Thanks for letting me learn all this. Thank you.
It's a tough meeting because it's more interesting to talk about the actual case and investigations and stuff like that. But I just appreciate you guys hanging in there.
I learned
to discuss. This is a really difficult topic and it's not one I have any knowledge of hardly at all. So George, I just appreciate you and Patricia weighing in from a lawyer standpoint. Thank you so much. And just for everybody being here and supporting Linda and her family. I know they greatly appreciate it. So I'm going to post this recording so that others in the group that couldn't be here are going to be able to watch, and Linda's family too. And then hopefully we'll get some more input and more participants, and we'll see what the next few weeks bring. So, but thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good to meet all of you.
Yeah, you as well.
See y'all.
We will talk soon. Okay.
Perfect.
Good.
Okay.